Hey everyone, I'm Ron. Today I have a very special guest for the No Pants Academy, the content marketing writer, Jennifer Gregory. She's been writing professionally for over 20 years, and today she's going to share some of that knowledge and experience with us. So we'll get into finding your niche or learning what a niche is if you don't know yet, why it's important, how to get new clients, common mistakes, all kinds of great stuff. So let's dive right in. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ron. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. So if you could just take us back, you've been doing this for a long time, just kind of how you got started writing, your freelancing career, just take us back to the beginning.
Yep. When I was I always knew I wanted to write. It was how I communicated my entire life when I went to pick a college major, was trying to figure out how to use that love and strength to make money. And I actually ended up doing an English major with a concentration in technical writing. And interestingly enough, when I was researching, this was pre-internet days, I was going to the library looking about what a technical writer was. And one of the big bonuses was that you could work from home and freelance. So I always really knew that that's what I wanted to do at some point when I had a family. So after college, I got a job working at Arthur Andersen before they became corrupt with Enron, and worked there as a tech writer, and then worked a couple other places, ended up at IBM and left when I had kids, took 7 years off. The plan was always for me to freelance. I had kept that since college. And once my youngest, who's now in high school, started school, I launched my freelance career.
So at IBM and all these different jobs, you were always a technical writer?
Yep, a technical, which is actually it's actually different than what I do now, which is a technology content marketing writer. A technical writer, people kind of confuse them sometimes, and I actually have my master's in that. And to be honest, I wasn't a very good technical writer. It's very uncreative. It's creating manuals and standard operating procedures that are just giving the information with no flair or creativity.
Gotcha. So it's very kind of dry,
Yep.
Technical writing. Yeah, makes sense.
Yep, it makes sense, but it is honestly very different than what I know. And I think it's funny that I'm good at what I do now, and I was bad at that. So,
at technical writing.
I did a good job at my job because I spent a lot of time coming up with other projects that didn't involve technical writing, so nobody noticed. Okay. But that wasn't my strength. I did a lot of other types of writing in the process.
So now you do a lot of content writing, correct?
Yep, and content writing is different than marketing writing. It's basically journalism for a brand. So most of what I do, although I do a little bit of marketing writing, most of what I do is writing informational articles for brands. So for IBM, I've written on their blogs on their site. For Hewlett Packard, I've worked on their newsroom section, ghostwritten for their executives, as well as written stories for there. So it's informational type articles. Right now I'm working on some stuff for Fidelity on their site, and it's informational articles.
And is there like a call to action or some kind of, pitch with sort of these? Is it, because I've heard the term, advertorial, where it's sales copy woven in information?
What I do is typically not advertorial. There's usually a call to action at the bottom, but other than the call to action, most of what I do could go in a technology publication or a consumer publication. It looks and feels like journalism, although it's not. The differences in what I do are that the brands want you to have a certain tone, as opposed to journalism where you can write your own in your own voice, but you have to have the brand voice. And the other is, you're obviously not going to use a competitor as a source or say anything bad about the company that you're writing for. Those are kind of the big differences. It's not totally unbiased because there are sources you can't use, even though they are the best for the article.
Gotcha. Is it hard to get into different tones for different brands and companies?
Yes. And I actually have found that I always tell writers that when they're getting a lot of revisions or having a hard time with a client, that most of it comes back to tone. Because when a client says, I don't like this, it's usually because the tone's off. And I've become a pretty good chameleon where I can write in different tones. I have about 5 different tones, and it took work. There was the tone that I use the most now which is kind of a conversational, snappy sort of tone,
Mm-hmm.
was one in the beginning. I had to stop working for a couple clients because I couldn't nail it.
Mm.
And I figured it out eventually. So that's kind of the hardest part. But once you get it, you can do it.
Okay. So just got to practice, and then sometimes it's just not a good fit, I guess, if you can't come across as authentic, if it's too different from your own voice, maybe.
Yeah, probably. But the way that I learned it was one article I had to rewrite 4 times, and I
Mm-hmm.
really wanted the byline, so I kept going until I got the right tone. And it was really that exercise of writing and writing and writing the same content where I figured it out.
So we talked about at the beginning of the interview about niches. So could you just tell the audience maybe, what a niche is and some of the niches that you cover now?
Yep. So a niche is an area that you specialize in or write in. And there's always been the generalist versus niche discussion with writers. Most generalists that I know actually have several are really writers with a lot of different niches. So they might write about pets and finance and career, and some other stuff. Even the most niche writers I know also write about outside their niche at times. So it's one area of concentration, but you can have multiple niches. And you can also kind of have a broad niche with more granular niches inside. So for example, my broad niche is B2B technology. Within that, I have different areas that I specialize in. And one is hospitality technology, which is technology written for hotels. The other is healthcare technology, which is technology written for technology for healthcare systems. And I've also kind of specialized in marketing technology, so technology used for personalization and marketing. But then I have some more broad niches within that. So I really recommend, especially in content writing, to have a niche, because one of the big things is, so when people ask the hardest part and the best part of writing content marketing writing is that every business needs content. So your potential audiences, unlike journalism where you can pull up a list, is every business in the entire world. And so, I mean, where do you even start? But when you have a niche, it does 2 things, in my opinion. One is it helps you narrow the clients that are more likely to hire you because of your expertise. And it also gives a reason for the company to hire you, makes you stand out from the crowd. So I know I've helped some clients find writers, and when they say they can write about everything, that's not necessarily true, because I know I couldn't write about neuroscience to neurologists. Just like someone that specializes in that probably couldn't write tech to techies like I can. So that's kind of my thing with it. And you don't limit yourself, because you can have multiple niches. And you can write outside your niche whenever you want. I do profiles of people with mental health challenges just for something different on the side. So
instead of being kind of a jack of all trades, you have to pick a few things, not only to set yourself apart, but to specialize in when you go looking for clients.
I'll never say you have to do anything, because I think that the best business is when you build something authentic to yourself, both your strengths, your personalities, and your goals. But from talking to writers that earn a higher income, most of those either are generalists with specialties within a certain areas they specialize in, or niche writers. So the most of the writers that I talk to, and I do free coaching for anyone that emails me. So that offer is always out there if anybody has questions. The writers that I see struggling are the ones that don't have a niche, because they don't know where to pitch, and then when they pitch themselves, they kind of go into a black hole, because the agencies or the clients can't exactly see where to use them. So, and the other thing is, I also write about insurance and tech, and when I write for a LOI, a letter of introduction, which is how you let people approach potential clients, my letter of introduction is totally different for each one of those. So you market yourself based on who you're approaching.
Okay. So how did you decide on the niches that you mostly write in now?
The first interview I got when I was looking for a job was in software. So it just kind of went from there. Over the years, I realized that while I'm not a techie, I have a ability that I've learned is not something everybody has, is the ability to translate geek to real people. And from working in the tech field for so many years, I can talk to techies, but I'm not one. So the way when I started freelancing that I decided to go into that niche is because you want to look at what skill you have that other writers don't have to set yourself apart. And that was one of them when I sat down and looked at my strengths. So then I marketed myself for companies that have technical products, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, that they're marketing to marketing people or doctors. And those people don't understand or even need to understand all the inner workings. They want to know how it works, what it does for them, and how to solve their problems with it.
I think that's the biggest thing is sometimes as freelancers, we feel like we have to kind of be good at everything, but it's really about finding those strengths, not worrying about, shoring up your weaknesses and getting better at every little thing. It's find the strengths and then, go deep.
I completely agree with you. I think that it's about, because you're happy when you're doing the things that you're good at, and that's where you make the most money. And and I'm not saying don't stretch yourself with things you need to work on. But the clients that I find myself most successful in, and I really think having long-term clients is the secret, because if you're always marketing yourself, it's hard to get ahead because every marketing hour is unpaid. But if work's constantly coming to you, which is, I haven't had to look for work since February of 2015 or 2016. So that's almost 2 years. It's all come to me. And that is where you get, the most benefit.
So most of your clients are repeat clients, or are they on retainer?
Most of our people, they also find me. So they find me through referrals. They find me through my website. My website has high SEO, or they see my name on similar publications, and they most of them come to me. So that's where if you're not looking for work and it comes to you, one, you can be choosy, and two, you don't have to spend that time. But back to the strengths thing, I really think it's being honest about your strengths and your weaknesses, and figuring out how to minimize those weaknesses. Okay, I am the typo queen. I am terrible at that. And I was finding myself spending so much time trying to make my stuff clean, my writing clean, and it's never going to happen. I would spend twice as long and there would still be a typo in there. My mind works fast. That's not my strength. So I started hiring a proofreader. So one is I was spending a lot less time and my editors were happy and I was happier. And I actually make more money hiring the proofreader. One, because I get repeat business because people aren't irritated that there's typos. And two, I can do more work in the same amount of time because I'm not spending an hour proofing something that still isn't clean. And I have also found that it's kind of funny. I used to, when I did, potential client interviews trying to see with someone that wanted to work with me, I used to try to be very professional and exactly what I thought they wanted. And then one night I happened to have a glass of wine. Someone called me late and I was myself. And you know what? The next morning I woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, I blew that. And they emailed me and said, I want to work with you. Your personality is exactly what we're looking for. And so I started being myself because I found that when I was myself, those were the clients that were more likely to be a long-term client and I was going to work well with. So, if someone doesn't like that I laugh a lot or I'm a little irreverent sometimes, then we're probably not going to work together for 3 years. So we should probably both move on. And honestly, that was one of the keys to my business, was being myself. I became happier and I think I do much better income-wise too.
I think that's a great point. It's also super encouraging that just being your authentic self actually helps. You know, you don't have to fit in a box, and because we're the same way. My wife and I are like real happy-go-lucky,
Yep.
just try to be, you know, maybe we're not the most professional, but we're super friendly and
Yep.
try to be warm. And so the clients that we've had the best relationships with, they're very similar.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, and the beauty of being a freelancer is you can work, you choose who you want to work with. So I always say that I don't mark my career by I made so much money or I got these great clients.
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 stages that I considered success, which was after a little bit of getting my business going, I was able to institute what I called the no a-hole policy, where I didn't work with people that met that description.
Mm-hmm.
And then a little bit longer, I institute the I only work with nice people policy.
Mm.
And then now in the past year, I've upped it to the 3rd level, which is I only work with very nice people. And the funny thing is I now tell clients that, potential clients on the phone,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a perfect weed out mechanism because people that don't fit that category think you're a little weird for having this. And the ones that I work best with start laughing
Mm-hmm.
and say that they have the same rule.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, that's awesome. I think on strategy sessions, I'll start them off by being like, how friendly are you? Do you enjoy smiling? If they're like, oh, I'd be like, okay, well, it's a good indicator.
Well, sometimes I'll just say, are you a nice person? Because I only work with nice people.
Mm-hmm.
And they usually, the right people start laughing and the wrong people are like, okay, no.
Yeah, what?
Right.
So on your site, have you been blogging for long?
I started blogging in 2013, and I was at a American Society for Journalists and Authors conference. I'm now on the board of directors and secretary. It's a great organization to help meet other writers and connect with clients. And a lot of writers at the time were coming up to me. I had just started doing content marketing and asking me questions, so I decided to start blogging. Mm-hmm. And I think I blogged for 6 months for me and my mother. And then I started getting a reader, and I was so excited. And the funny thing is, doing that for 4 years, I now have the #1 keyword on Google for content marketing writer. And that has made a huge difference in my business. I basically did content marketing for myself. And so the blog has been twofold. One is I absolutely love giving back to other writers. Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite things to do is help other writers. Because everything I've learned by doing it the wrong way. And so it's not that I have a magic secret or anything. It's just that I've made so many mistakes over the years. I know I know what not to do. Yeah. And the second is it has helped my business. So it's helped me authentically, something I enjoy and help my business. So it was a great decision. I had no idea how it would turn out. I'm still in awe that I have the #1 Google ranking for that pretty big keyword. So.
No, that's awesome. And it probably does help with bringing in the traffic.
And it also helps when the client says, so do you know SEO? I tell them to go to Google and type in content marketing writer. And I say, see, if I did that for myself, I can do it for you. And there's usually nothing else to say. Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, okay. Well, there it is.
Next point.
So I know on your blog that you talk about a 3-step method for getting new clients. And so for you get a lot of warm traffic, referrals coming in, but for somebody kind of starting out, what would that look like?
So the biggest thing is identifying clients is that I find, because as we just talked about, the whole wide world. So a lot of times people start with, if they are a travel writer, they think they just have to write about travel. So it makes it harder when you start that way. So I suggest my 3-step method, which is the first thing is start with the audience that you know. So as a writer, you understand an audience. So let's take a travel writer who's probably done hotel reviews. They've probably written for hotels. They probably understand the hotel business. Mm-hmm. So they would start with people that own and manage hotels would be an audience that they understand. And so that would be step 1, start with the audience. And when you don't start here, you limit yourself. Mm-hmm. The second, and this is where I say to spend a lot of time, is make a list of all the products and services that audience needs. So for example, for hotels, They would need point of sale service. They would need, which is a software. They probably need, a website and email software to do that, some marketing software. They need management software. They probably hire a firm to handle their security. So make a list of everything that they need. They need the door locks. They buy door locks to put on their doors. They need the smart thermostats that make them not spend a bunch on electricity. Mm-hmm. Now they need the smart televisions, or some hotels don't have blinds that open and shut. So think of all the things that they're going to buy, both to run their hotels and use it. And then I actually recommend talking to some other people in that audience and get a list of everything that they buy or use. Mm-hmm. And once you get to there, then the next step is brands. So you start coming up with the brands that make those products and services. And those are all potential clients because they're marketing their stuff to your audience. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes you come up with things that you never would have thought about. And you're not necessarily, it doesn't matter if you don't know, all about how the curtains that open and shut are mm-hmm. made, because your content's going to be solving the problems of the audience, which you understand. So I've really found a lot of people can go a lot further with that. Another example, I'll give another quick example. So let's say you write about diabetes. So you would think about all of the products and services that someone that has diabetes would buy or purchase. So mm-hmm. Insulin, glucose monitors, I think there's some special socks, different, mm-hmm. everything, make a list, and then come up with all the brands that make those because they're marketing to the audience that you understand.
And then from there, once you've got those, do you reach out to them? Yep.
You reach out to them and write a letter of introduction that presents yourself as an expert for their audience in their field. So that's what's called a letter of introduction. And I also recommend any personal contacts that you can make, either going to American Marketing Association meetings or if going to associated meetings in your niche, because today in the digital age, it's so rare that we actually meet another person. Mm-hmm. So when they meet a freelancer, it makes an impression. So I really think that getting out of your house and making those connections is important. And I'll also throw in a plug for meeting other writers, mm-hmm. because I've gotten so much work for other writers, and I've given other work to other writers, because if something comes up that I don't have time for, or it just isn't a fit for my interest, I'll give it to somebody else. So that happens a lot. Other writers aren't our competition, they're our colleagues.
It's a great way to look at it. And it is just nice having, so I have one marketing friend in real life, and it's cool just to go and grab coffee and talk about everything that we do online 24/7, but with a real person. Do you have any local or in real life clients that you work with?
I have met a few of them. Right now I don't have any local ones, but I have at various points. Sometimes I do content strategy as well. So sometimes clients will fly me to a client site for a meeting. So that's happened. There's a few clients I've met. And I've also met them in real life through ASJ has in-person events where you meet with editors. Mm-hmm. And so I've met some of my clients there. So I'm trying to think. I'd say about half of them I've met at some point. Mm-hmm. At some point in real life over the years. Yeah, that's an interesting question.
That's very cool, because with my wife and I, our business, we've met with a couple of businesses here in Knoxville, Tennessee, but mm-hmm. all of our people are still just online. Australia, we'll probably never meet them, and the UK, we'll probably never meet them.
Right. There's definitely some I'll never meet.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's interesting. I think a lot of the in-person connections are from meeting people at conferences, not that I went to meet them specifically.
Mm-hmm. But just networking to meet people and try to help other people, not looking at them. I think that's the big thing, is going into events, just trying to meet people, be authentic, make friends, as opposed to just kind of seeing dollar signs above everybody's head.
You're exactly right, because I've gone to content marketing world a few years, and people are like, how do I pitch to clients? I'm like, you don't. You just go talk to people and grab business cards and send them a LinkedIn request that night if you can, and follow up the next week. And that's where you take it to the next level. But at the conference, you just want to be somebody interesting that they liked, and even if you have conversations about content, so they know it, but you're not trying to pitch them. I totally agree with you that it's not about the hard sell. It's about being a real person.
Yeah. And just making that connection. And then if something works out, then great. And if not, that's okay. Just people meeting people.
You are absolutely right. And that's interesting about you having the real life writer friend. I don't know if I could be doing this without. I have an accountability buddy I've had for 4 or 5 years, and her and I email probably 10 times a day. I finished this. It's like you would yell at someone over the cube wall. We'll run quotes by each other. If we're having a bad day, we'll email each other. It's not always 10, but and so when I finish something I've been struggling, if I finish something, I will send her, I finished this, that kind of thing. So we'll even set goals. By 11 o'clock, I'm going to do this. And so we'll go back and forth. And I don't know if I could do this without some of my writer friends or someone to cheer. I actually was with them in real life this weekend at a conference, and someone to cheer with when my kids call them my fake friends, but I swear they're real. Someone to cheer with that really understands, because most people in my real life don't understand my life as a freelance writer, because it's just kind of different.
Yeah, for sure. I like the idea of almost like an accountability partner and a friend, because people, when you tell people what you do, it's like, oh, you get to work from home. It's so nice. You wear PJs and you just sit around and watch TV all day. And it's like, the struggle is real as a freelancer, because like it's just you and normally your computer screen and your brain, and you just got to, produce. And it's hard sometimes.
Absolutely. And throw unpredictable teenagers into the mix, and it gets even more interesting. I forgot my flute. I'm having a crisis at school. Yeah. But yeah, no, it is definitely a different lifestyle. And I think it really helps, because my dogs really don't understand when I land a new client or when I finish something and I'm jumping up and down. There has to be somebody that gets it. That you can kind of, and also just bounce ideas back and forth with, and just, it's great. I almost never, and that comes back to another point, a benefit of having writer friends, and I do this for other writers. For example, I guess it was about 3 months ago, a large telecommunication company wanted me to price out a white paper for them. And I wasn't quite sure, so I called a friend, and I was thinking $1,500, and she told me I was crazy, and that I was seriously underpricing myself, and told me to go up to 4,000. And I did, and they didn't blink. I probably could have gone higher. So that one phone call saved me $2,500. Seriously. And my accountability partner and I almost never take a new gig without running pricing by each other, because I'm not a very good negotiator, and we always encourage each other to go up a little bit. And so that kind of gives you the confidence to go a little higher if someone else is telling you. And I have friends that will call me about pricing, and I almost always encourage them to go higher. And then it's amazing when the client bites and says, of course. So
no, that's great. So before you ask them, where do you get your kind of baseline ideas for your prices? And I'm assuming they've went up kind of over the years as you get better and better.
Yep. I think most professional freelancers should aim. Now I prefer to price by project, which means you don't tell the client your hourly rate. So it's hidden in your project price. And I prefer project prices. So there's 3 ways you could price, which is by word, by hour, or by project. I don't price by hour, because the problem is when you get better at your job, you make less money if you're pricing by hour. And so that doesn't make sense to me. I think about my projects all the time, it's how do I charge someone while I'm driving and I write something in my head?
Exactly.
And I tell my clients that when the new ones and the ones that I'm good with work that will be a good long-term client don't think that's crazy. They laugh because they understand, because they're always thinking about stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't figure out how to bill people while walking my dog. So in per word is hard, because a 500-word article that is 500 words with no interviews on a basic subject is going to take a lot less time than 500 words with 2 or 3 interviews on something technical. So if you're pricing per word, you're making both of those equal. And that doesn't make sense to me, because there's a vast difference in the amount of time. So with project pricing, what it is the hourly rate you would like to earn times the amount of time it's going to take you. So for example, I'm working on a post right now for a tech company that requires no interviews, web research, and I'm making $500 for it. So those take me about 2.5 hours. So I can't do the math off the top of my head.
It's like $250 or so.
Right. So that's what I make per hour on those. So so if I want to price something, you take your hourly rate, and I think that $100 an hour is where you should be aiming for sure. If you're doing something where there's less writers in that field, you go up. I probably am in the 150-ish range most of the time. I have price projects that end up higher, like the one I just said. But I've also been doing that a long time. I can do them quick. But $100 an hour, and I kind of have an inverted ratio. The less writers that they can call, if they don't want to, if I'm too high, the higher I'll go. So if it's something most writers can do, it's closer to 100. If there's not that many because it's specialized, such as healthcare, IT, or that's something you got to know what you're doing, then it's on the higher end. And the clients really do understand that. So the benefit of project pricing is, 1, you know how much you're going to earn. 2, you don't have to count hours. And 3, as you get better at it, you make more money. So, and honestly, it's the closest I can come up with when you know how much you're making per hour on a project, from apples to apples, because I can compare that the $500 one that has no interviews is taking me 2.5 hours, as opposed to, so I'm making whatever we decided I made, is one that has 2 or 3 interviews that's taking me 5 hours. If I'm doing it per word, I don't see you don't see the difference. Does that make sense? It's kind of a hard concept, but.
Oh, for sure. Because I know a lot of freelancers start on something like Upwork, and it's always hourly, and it doesn't matter if something takes you, it doesn't really matter, but with projects, it is a lot better. And I also think it's better because clients, they may balk at $100 an hour, $150 an hour, as opposed to you tell them this project is $500, and they don't know if you're going to spend 10 hours or 50 hours, not to overcharge people, but it seems more valuable what they're going to get from it. So
and it's a very good point that you don't share your hourly rate. This is kind of a funny story. Someone that I had worked with for 2 years, and I had earned probably $60,000 from his company. I was at a conference, and someone asked him, he was speaking about his hourly, what he paid. And he goes, I'm not sure what it equals out to. Jennifer, do you have any ideas? And I said, I always earn at least $100 an hour. He was irritated and shocked and thought I was lying. And I normally earned higher. He had no idea, which was pretty funny.
He was happy to pay the project price, but he hears the hourly. Wait a minute.
Wait. So so I think that is kind of funny. But the way I sell it to the clients is I sell it that they know what to expect. I said with hourly, you don't know how much you're going to pay. With projects, you're able to budget more. And if something takes me more time, then, that's on me, type of thing. And they tend to get that because they can sell it easier to their boss and stay on budget. And I also say, because I'm not tracking time, I can focus on giving you the best the best content you need, and not trying to track the time. And they laugh and they get that. So it's not too hard of a sell. Some clients will try to keep you do it per hour, but that's usually if you're doing something that's hard to project, to do in projects. I even do my content strategy in project fees, and that's more on a value-based pricing than an hour, because the other thing to remember when you're pricing yourself, so the reason that I can write artificial intelligence stuff to tech people that people understand isn't just the 3 hours that I spent on it. It's the 20 years that I've spent on it. And so you have to kind of think, I mean, $250 an hour or whatever it was sounds like a lot, but it's like a lawyer or a physician. You bring your expertise and your schooling and everything you've learned. So it's value pricing too. You want to, I'm moving more towards that. I've got to learn more about how that works and how to price myself. But I definitely think more in terms of the value I'm bringing to the company, because it's more than just the 3 hours that I wrote.
Exactly. And what would take you maybe 3 hours would take someone else 10. So even if you're paying them less hourly, you're going to end up paying about the same for an inferior product.
Right. Absolutely.
I think that's the biggest thing with freelancers is trying to get them to compete on, the value they provide rather than a race to the bottom on price.
Absolutely. And I think that when you build your business around your strengths and you figure out what that is, that becomes a lot easier. Because your work accentuates your strengths and you can sell that to a client. So you're giving you something that stands out from the crowd and a reason to hire you that's not based on price. Yeah.
Because that's a horrible place to be, is when, because just recently I had a client come to me and we were talking about building an opt-in funnel, and they said, a friend of mine had his built for $700, and he sent me the link to it, and I looked at it and I was like, well, here's all the problems. Like, this is why it was $700. Like there's typos, there's like there wasn't broken links, but they were all really ugly. And it's just like so much stuff wrong that immediately anyways, and it didn't work out with him because he was just trying to get bottom of the barrel, just something done. He wanted to emulate this kind of thing. And it never works out well.
Yep. No, absolutely. And when you start working with a higher level of client, they tend to understand that. So when you're working with Hewlett Packard and AT&T, they know that they don't want every writer, that they don't want to necessarily get the cheapest writer. They understand that. So it helps to, and this is something else, I think it's important to intentionally and strategically have a plan for your business. When I was really building my business, I had everything I wrote, I had a plan for it. How was I going to use that clip or that client to make more money or get more experience? So everything was very strategic. I strategically went into the hospitality technology niche. I strategically went into a B2B niche. I had a plan. I wasn't just randomly trying to earn money. I knew where I wanted to be, and I think that makes a difference.
No, that's really good. So every little piece is kind of contributing to the bigger picture, moving forward with it.
And I used what because people ask, how do I get into another niche? And this kind of segues well into one of my favorite strategies, which I call the double niche article. So, for example, I was writing for American Express Open Forum at the time, and I wanted to get some vertical niches. So I also needed some technology clips, because I actually had when I left IBM, I had no clips, I had nothing. So I kind of had to start from scratch. And so I pitched to American Express, not every story, but I was pitching some hotel related stories. So I got hotel clips from American Express Open Forum and was able to use those to go pitch myself as a hospitality writer. And I did that too. I was working on an IBM Big Data Analytics project. They had a blog, and I picked up a number of healthcare stories with data analytics in wearables and IoT in healthcare on purpose, because I wanted to get into the healthcare market. And then I was able to use those clips to pitch myself to other companies. So a double niche is when it meets the needs of your current project, of course, but where you add in something else that you can pitch to another market. And I find that works really, really well. For example, a friend of mine was a tennis writer, and she wanted to move into personal finance. So I helped her come up with some ideas for some of her outlets on writing how to finance your tennis. So it was, how do you, what best credit cards are good for tennis players to get the rewards? How do you budget for tournaments? That kind of thing. And so she was able to get some personal finance clips for her tennis outlets that she used to move into another niche.
Okay, very nice. I like that idea of being very intentional, not just because the whole thing with freelancing, when you start out, maybe you have to kind of take on every project, but as soon as you gain a little bit of experience, a little bit of clout, you can be more selective. And so being very intentional with your planning. I think I've never really heard that before. That's really good.
And I think that people wait longer than they should for that. I think you kind of, it's hard because you're trying to make this work and you want it to work. And people usually freelance for reasons other than money, for the freedom, for that type of thing. And so you want it to work for other reasons in your life, whatever they are, that you get caught up in I just got to keep going. And when you have lower paying assignments, it's hard to move up. You have to step back and start letting go of some of your lower paying assignments. You have to intentionally start moving up. And I see writers stay at the bottom way too long. In my experience, and though it's hard, is sometimes you typically have to let go of a low paying client before you replace it, because you have to have the space to market. And so one of the things that I do is I try to make sure that no client takes up more than 20% of my income, because I've had clients, and back in January of 2016, 3 of my anchor clients disappeared. I mean, stuff happened with all of them. They had budget cuts. One was a large company was split into 2 companies. Just stuff happened, and it happened all in the same week, because that's how life works. And so I try to be very intentional to keep all of my clients under 20%, because most of us can survive pretty easily on 80% of our income, and you can make up 20%, but it's pretty hard to survive on 40% of your income if one client is 60%, and that's hard to make up. So although sometimes clients will sneak over the 20% line, I think that's something else to be intentional about. And I also try to diversify in industries, because I mean, who would have thought that the housing market would have fallen apart? And I know writers that were really that worked in that industry primarily, and that was they were in a lot of trouble. So I tried to diversify industries, and I tried to diversify between direct clients and agencies. That's something we haven't talked about, but I try to work with both. I think there's benefits to working through an agency, and I think there's benefits to working for the direct client. People often think that you make more money working for a direct client. And while, yes, that can be true, is if you have to compare apples to apples. Because when you work through an agency, a lot of times they handle, and by agency, I'm talking about what we used to call PR agencies and marketing agencies. Most of them still do content marketing for clients. There are some content marketing agencies, but anything that kind of handles that stuff is what I'm talking about. So a lot of times they will handle what is time consuming. So they will handle getting the project scoped. They will handle the back and forth of the deadlines. If there's any issues, they'll handle it. And usually the revisions come back in one nice, neat, that they've compiled. And a lot of times they even have the sources. They'll schedule the interviews. And several clients through agencies, I've gotten outlines. And so while they are taking a cut, you have to think of it in sort of time spent too. So, and the other thing about an agency is agencies have other clients. So you can easily get on other projects much more easily. So there's a pretty big pool of work from that perspective. And it's also, we're talking about moving into new niches. Sometimes through agencies, you can get another niche. I've had that happen. Because if they know you and know you're good and know you're smart and know you could probably do it, they're going to hire you for something that someone that doesn't know you isn't going to hire you for.
Right.
So you can, You can write about, actually, I got writing about manufacturing. It was tech and manufacturing. I hadn't written about that before. And someone that didn't know me probably wouldn't have hired me for that. But I've kind of developed a new niche because the person I had done, it was through an agency. I had done a lot of tech stuff with them, and they knew I could do it, and I did. But nobody would have hired me straight out of the bat for that.
So that's, I think it's an important distinction, because instead of having to start from scratch every time with a new client and all that, because it is so time consuming, the emails with what they're wanting and their goals, and here's a proposal, and here's this, and then just the back and forth, as opposed to you're just free to do what you're best at. You just I need you to write this, you write it, you give it to them, it's good to go.
And it also, if you want to get into content strategy or social media or something like that, sometimes, working with agencies, you have a little more opportunity, because I've been able to do that through one of my agencies. I've done some content marketing strategy and gotten some new skills. So it is a good place because you develop a relationship with them as well. And I touched on this before, but I just want to touch on it. One of the best ways to get new work is with people that already know you. So one of the things that I recommend is if you work with an agency, you usually have to ask about other projects, and you have different niches that are different than the ones they know about. Let them know, because I've had to let people know that, yes, I do finance. I work for Ameriprise and Allstate, so I do finance and insurance, and they might not know that because I'm on a tech project. So let them know that you're interested in other clients and your other expertise, and kind of keep mentioning that, because you'll get on other projects. The other is, even if you're working directly for a company, especially a big company, once you get a relationship going, ask if there's other departments that need content marketing. And because a lot of times the different departments hire out separately. So be sure to ask. And the third is, people move to other jobs. So find where they are and follow them. And email them and say, hey, I saw you're here. Do you need any work? Do you have any work? That kind of thing. And the other is, if you need work quickly, touch base with your past clients. You just might not be top of mind, but if you email them, they're going to say, oh yeah, that actually happened to me 2 weeks ago. I had been working on a project for a large tech company, had done a bunch in October, hadn't heard much, and I emailed them and said, oh yeah, I've got a bunch of projects. I'll assign them to you now that I know you're looking.
Yeah, perfect.
So, and I've gotten $7,000 worth of work from that, because I just let her know over the next month. In the last 2 weeks, I just let her know I had some capability, I had some availability, and wanted some more work to finish the year up strong. And she wouldn't have assigned me all of those, and I probably still have more coming. So reaching out to current clients and past clients is a great way if you need work quickly.
Yeah,
people that know you and like you.
Yeah, which hopefully is most of our previous clients.
Yes.
I think I'll do that today. Just send out a couple emails and just touch base, Q4, how things going.
And that segues to one of the biggest mistakes I see writers make, which is not following up. Every time you don't follow up, I really think you're leaving money on the table, because people think that if they don't hear back from someone, it's because they don't like them, they don't want to work with them. And really, it just means that their inbox is full, their boss got mad at them, their company's having layoffs. It just means nothing. I mean, it means it has nothing to do with you most of the time. And so if by following up and staying in touch and staying in the top of people's minds is where you get the work. Most of the time, especially with agencies, you get work when new projects come. So when you email them, they're not going to have work today, but they might in 3 months. So you want to, stay on their radar. So I've gotten work 2 years after I initially emailed somebody, because I kept in touch every couple months. So I really think that follow-up is important. And I think writers obviously you don't want to send someone an email every day. That's stalking. We don't want that. But there's a fine line between effective following up and stalking. And it's pretty thin, to be honest. And I think more writers are worried about bothering editors or marketers than they should be, because they need us. If it's the right fit, they need you. And so you're not bothering them. As long as you're professional and nice and not emailing them every 12 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
And trust me, if you're bothering them, they'll tell you to go away.
Yeah.
So I that's one of the biggest mistakes I see is not following up.
So follow up after projects, always just kind of ask, touch base for sure. And I think it does take a little degree of confidence, because sometimes we get in that feedback loop where it's, oh, that they hated my last thing. They don't want to reach out again. They're all these things that we can tell ourselves. And it's really just like you said, it's like, oh no, I've got a ton of projects. I'm glad that I know that you're free. Here they are.
People are busy, and they go with who's at the top of their mind. And also by following up, I'm not talking about just people you've worked with. Let's say you send out 30 emails next week to potential clients. If you don't hear back, I would follow up in 3 or 4 weeks, and then 3 months or so. It's not just people you've worked with, but every outreach you have, you should follow up in my opinion. And the ones that you really stay in touch with are the people that give you warm leads, which is, hey, you look exactly like what we're looking for. We don't have any projects now. Okay, those people are going to hear from me for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
and every few months, hey, just checking in. And I try to add value. I've sent, articles that I found, or commented on something they did on their site, or responded to social media. One editor that I ended up getting some recurring work for, we ended up becoming friends because we helped each other plan our vacations before he ever even hired me. Because and that's another good way to check in. If someone's kind of as I always, before and after vacation, I check in with people to let them know. If someone I haven't worked with in a while, but hey, just want to let you know in case something comes up, I'm gone, I'll be on vacation. Okay, I'm back. And it's a good way to stay on their radar. And then you can usually everyone likes to talk about travel. So usually I get in a discussion about where I've been. So
it's a good conversation starter. And I also like the idea of providing value, as opposed just, hey, do you have any work? Hey, do you have any work? It makes it also, again, about the authenticity and just being real people. People share articles, people help people. So it's more than just the ask.
Well, and also, and I like to travel, so that's why. But if I know someone's going on a vacation in February, because we talked about it over email, I'll say, oh, how was your vacation? I'm interested in. Sometimes we'll have conversations over email that have nothing to do with work, but that's really important, because you've connected, and that's really the point.
Yeah, you've built that relationship on something other than the work, so that it helps the work when it does come back around.
1.5%.
So is there anything today that we didn't cover that we should have covered?
No, I think we've really talked about my big things, which is be intentional, maximize your strength, try to figure out a way to minimize your weaknesses by outsourcing or looking for projects where the clients don't care about that. I also think as a freelancer, it's really important to take advantage of the freedom that we have. In a way that works for your life. It's so easy to not do that. I tried to take 6 weeks off a year, where I either, at least 4 of those are usually not working, but there's usually another 4 where I'm partially working throughout the year. But I think it's important to take advantage of the freedom that we get. There's some downsides to freelancing, and the freedom is one of the big ones. Yeah. And the other is really make connections with other writers. So those are my main points. And the fifth, or however, I'm not a math person, however many it is. The other one is, if you have self-doubts, that's normal. We all do. If all your work falls away, that's normal. We all do. Reach out, talk to another writer. A friend of mine got into a rough patch last year, and she didn't want to tell any of us because she was embarrassed. The minute she reached out, we all responded with job leads and ideas, and her business picked up within a month dramatically because she reached out. And she also said that she found out that almost every one of us had the same thing happen. So I think it's the connections with other people and other writers are really important.
Absolutely. That's all just gold. This has just been a great interview all around. Yay! Jennifer, thank you so much.
And if anyone has any questions, as I said, I don't take money from writers. So I don't do paid coaching. I just am happy to do free coaching. I talk for half an hour on the phone to anyone that needs help, because so many people have helped me in my career. And the only way I can give that back is by helping others. So I'm happy. Shoot me an email, and I'm happy to help anyone that needs help. As long as you won't be offended that I usually fold my laundry at the same time to multitask, we're all good. So.
And what is that email?
Jennifer Gregory at NC, as in North Carolina, where I live, at nc.rr.com. Okay,
excellent. So we'll include that down below, and then also a link to your blog. What is your website?
It's jennifergregorywriter.com, and then /blog is where my blog is. And that's got 4 years of content marketing advice. And in the next couple, I've got a book written that puts all of that in more of a usable format, because all the information's there, but it's kind of hard to sort through 300 blog posts. Yeah. So that's been my new book that will be coming out in the early 2018 is putting my blog into more of a roadmap formula of how to do everything we've talked about.
Awesome. It's very exciting.
So, yes. Scary.
Yeah.
Scary, but exciting. Well, thank you so much. Was there any other questions you had for me, or?
That's it. I think we're golden. Jennifer, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And my other advice for anyone listening is you can do this. You know, being a freelancer, it takes persistence. It takes guts, but you've got this. You can do it. And I really think that wanting it and being persistent is the most important value. You're going to be told no, but you keep coming back and someone's going to tell you yes. And you've got to believe in yourself, and you can do this. And the rewards are so wonderful, because to know that I built a business sitting at my kitchen table will actually bring me to tears. I mean, you can't get that from something else. So
absolutely.
My big advice is you've got this, you can do it. It takes work, and be persistent and be yourself.
All right, guys, you heard it here. Be authentic, get out there. You can do it.
You can do it. And I hope that everyone has a great day.
All right. We'll talk soon. Thanks, Jennifer.
Bye-bye.